Hi everybody, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. Well, it's springtime and this is the first both doors open day in the Claremont Classic Garage. We got both the overhead doors open. That can only mean one thing. It's time to get our turf equipment ready. First piece of equipment we're going to fix up is our little John Deere. Right now it's in winter mode. We're going to switch it to grass mode. And I got to address a couple of issues on it. It's starting to rust pretty badly on the platform here. So I'd like to clean that up and get the rust nipped in the bud. I'm not going to take it all apart and paint the whole thing. I'm just going to paint that bottom there where my feet go. I'm also going to fix up this deck because it's looking a little skanky. And I will put a new belt and a new set of blades because the blades on it are absolutely destroyed. I'll start by taking the snow blade off and putting my bumper back on. It's pretty easy. There's a hair clip in the back. You pull this pin out on each side and it just lifts up out of these slots and it's out. Like literally seconds. Bumper goes on the same way. Just sits in there like that. And then it's held on with a couple of bolts. While we're at the front, we'll just check things out up here. Have a look at the air cleaner. And I'll check the motor oil and stuff like that. Alright, so there's a bunch of crap here in the housing. There's some stuff in the pre-filter. The filter itself looks pretty clean. So we're just going to clean everything up with compressed air and put it back together. So I pull a dipstick out of this thing. And you can see just on the tip of it, a little beige. That's a little bit of sludge from it having condensation in it. There's some there. So we're going to go ahead and give this thing a good oil change. Probably because I used it in the winter and it never really got good and hot. So it built up some condensation in the crankcase. So we'll give it an oil change and put a filter on it and it should be good to go. So here's our drain down here. You just twist that and pull it off. Kind of a strange system, but it works. I'm always paranoid that little plastic cap is going to crack or something, but it never has. So I guess it's okay. So we'll let that drip and we'll be back in a minute. Once it's done, we'll cap it back off and then we'll change the filter. I got to look if I have one. I think this one will fit it, so we should be in luck. While that's dripping, I'll get the weight bucket off the back. That's a good thing to do. This is something I made up, but it does the job. Just sits on the trailer ball and it gets balanced by these two little chains. It's worked for years. It's easy to put on, easy to take off. There we go, back in summertime mode. Now we can put the cap back on this and change the filter. There we go. Shove that through the other side. Let's see if this comes off. Gee, that was really on there, but we got it. I usually run this stuff on 10W30 Mobile 1. Somehow I've got the dregs of a jug of 0W30. That'll be good enough. It's the 30 that's important, so we'll fill her up with that. She fired right up. We'll let it run for a minute, then we'll shut it down and check the oil level. So we're good. The oil level is just above the full mark, which is fine because we run it at some pretty awkward angles in the ditch. So having it over full a slight bit won't hurt it. Next thing I got to do is grease the kingpins or spindles, whatever you want to call them. That's the only two grease fittings on this whole tractor. I lied. The front wheels have grease fittings too. No problem. We got them. Now we'll take off a few things so we can address the rest on this. Mostly I'm just going to take these 2 steps. I think they're just popped in. And I'm going to remove what's left of our seat. Hopefully I'll be able to get a new seat, but they're not cheap from what I understand. That's pretty ugly. Look at that. It just peels right off. I've never seen anything like it. That's bizarre. Anyway, we'll look after it. So now what I have to do is take these few things off the back. This unfortunately has weld nuts that are supposed to be welded into the deck. Well, you can see they're not welded into the deck anymore, and they're spinning. So we'll have to come up with a plan for that, and we'll get these few bits off, and then we can refinish this. And then once I've got this all apart, we'll take the deck apart. These are the captive nuts for the seat. They mount in from underneath, and they're swedged or swodged. I can never pronounce the word right. Anyway, that's how they're into the floor pan here to hold the seat. Now this one came right out. This one's still in, but it's turning. So what we'll do is we'll tack that one, weld it, and we'll do the same thing with this. Once everything's cleaned up, we'll get it back in there, and then we'll weld it in to make sure we don't have this problem again in the future. I would really like to completely remove this floor pan from the machine in order to refinish it. So I'm going to see this thing, the dash or the tower, whatever you want to call it, has to completely come off in order to get that off, because the bolts go through the bottom of this and through the floor pan into the chassis of the machine. So anyway, I'm going to have a little go at it and see if I can get this off. Well, it was pretty easy so far. I just took these screws out around here and the top of the dash popped off. Now I'll take out the battery, and I should be able to get at these 4 bolts and just lift this shroud off, and we should be in good shape. At least that's how it looks like it'll go. So there's 6 bolts down through the bottom of this, and it mostly, let's see, it should just come out. There we go. And now we can see our deck. So the next thing I have to deal with is I've got the steering column does go through the deck, but I think I should be able to just lift it straight up and off. We'll find out. Well, there you have it. I got it off. A couple of things I need to do while I'm in here. First of all, it's going to get a total, complete power wash because it's a mess. You can see here our hydrostatic drive belt is just about done. So we'll get one of those from the dealer and replace it. And we're just going to do a nice job on this thing so we can get another 15 years out of it. I'm also going to have a look when I'm underneath there. I noticed that the steering, the sector gear is pretty sloppy on the shaft that it runs on. It's just going to need a little shimming to get it back tight again. Also, for ease of moving a thing around, I'm going to take the hood off. It's pretty simple. You just unhook the pigtail for the lights, which is down there, and pull these 2 springs off of here, and then the hood just lifts straight off. Everything got a good power wash, so while I wait for that stuff to dry before I could start doing paint prep on it, I'm going to have a go at this. I got to change the drive belt, and I also want to look into changing, or at least checking, the hydrostatic transmission fluid. I don't know if there's an interval you're supposed to change it or not. I'm going to see what I can find out. Maybe I might have to read the manual. Well, I looked up surface transmission in the manual, and here's what it says. Don't friggin' touch. I still would like to know how to check the oil. I'm going to see what I can find out. Maybe Google can help. Even Google said the same thing. If it's working, leave it alone. So I did find there's a fill plug there. I took it off and looked inside it. It's good and full of fluid, so that's the extent of that. I'm going to go ahead now and change this drive belt. Looks like I have to take this guard off first, and then the belt should come right out. Not too bad. You just have to remove a couple of pulleys and some guards and the steering shaft. It's certainly more involved than changing the deck belt, but still nothing like what we used to go through changing belts on those old lawn tractors from the 60s and 70s. You'd have to take practically the whole machine apart to change a belt. Now I'm going to have a shot at tightening up the steering. You can see here the sector is flopping all over the place. I'm not sure how much I'll be able to tighten that up, but I'm going to take this bolt out and see if I can put a Belleville washer under it or something. Probably not really a lot I can do, but hey, we can't make it worse. Not much can be done to tighten up that steering. It's not that bad. I'll live with it. Now I'll take this piece outside and do the grinding that I need to do on it. Get all the loose paint off and get it sort of ready for paint. I ground off as much loose flaky paint as I could find and feathered the edge a little bit with an air sander. I'm not going too crazy on this. I think it's a powder coat, but I'm not sure. It's funny stuff, or it's paint and it's super hard and it just didn't stick worth a crap. Anyway, it doesn't matter what it is. We're going to fix it. So I went and I scuffed the rest of it. Too bad I lost my gigantic warning decal that was on the middle of the deck there, but what are you going to do? I wrote down the number. I'll see if I can get a new one cheap. And then I'm going to weld those two captive nuts back in for the seat on that. And then we can probably go ahead and get some primer on this stuff. That'll do it for now. We've got the mechanical stuff mostly done. When we come back, we'll pick up on the rust and paint work and putting this thing all back together. And keeping our fingers crossed until then that we remember how to put it back together. Anyway, for now, this is Kevin checking out from the Claremont Classic Garage. Thanks for tuning in, and so long.